Hi, I'm Amy Scott Grant. Welcome to another installment of Truth Testing, How to Use a Pendulum. Today we're talking about bias. So what is a bias? Well, a bias is when you have a strong attachment or you have a really strong preference. In other words, you're asking the question, you want to get a true and accurate answer, but you're kind of hoping that it goes a certain way because that's what you want to hear or do or have or be or whatever. So that's what a bias is. Now, why is that important? Well, because if you're asking questions with a bias, you're kind of defeating the entire point of using a truth testing method. Because the whole point of truth testing is to get a true and accurate and unbiased answer. Now, there's three ways that bias can show up. Sometimes we know, going into the question, we know we have a bias. We're asking and we're thinking, oh, I really hope it's not a yes, or oh, I really hope I get yes, or you want a certain answer. We know that going into it. Other times, we've already asked the question and the answer seems a little suspect. You know, like, it's saying yes, but I'm not so sure that it's really a yes. Other times, the only indication that we have that there's a bias is that we get inconsistency in the answers. And while you know I typically discourage people from asking the same question over and over with their pendulum, because usually if you're doing that, it indicates that there's a lack of trust on your part in your ability to get reliable answers with the pendulum, or it indicates that you have a bias and you're sort of, you know, when you were a kid and your mom said no, you'd sort of keep asking her the same question in different ways, hoping she'd eventually say yes. Yeah, that happens with the pendulum too, and not just with the pendulum, but with any of the truth testing methods that you're using. So sometimes inconsistent answers, either everyone in the group checks and one person gets a different answer, or two people get a different answer from the rest of the group, or it could just be two people getting two different answers, or you could be asking the same question and getting different answers. That usually indicates that there's some kind of bias, okay? So that's how you recognize a bias. Now, what do you do about it if you know it's there? Well, I'm going to show you a few tricks today. You know, one of them, if you're going into the question and you already know you have a bias, one thing you can do is you can start swinging your pendulum in a way that's not one of your signs before you ask the question. My husband does this when he has a bias, and he really likes this method. So, for example, he would swing the pendulum around in a circle, which is not one of his signs. Now, you don't want to swing it in one of your signs, right? You want the pendulum to actually have to stop swinging the way you're moving it and move a different way. So he would start out swinging it, and then he would close his eyes and phrase the question in his mind and just sit for a second or two. And by the time he would open his eyes, he would have his clear and unbiased answer, okay? That's one easy thing if you know you have a bias going into the question. Another thing you can do is you can simply ask, you can phrase your question and then simply ask, please show me a clear and unbiased answer. Now, while I will tell you this works for most people, some people it doesn't work for, and that's okay, we've got other tricks. But sometimes it doesn't work for certain people, or sometimes if you really have a strong bias, you can still swing it. Because I'm telling you, this is the #1 question I get from people, is it possible for me to influence my answer? Heck yeah, it's possible. It's highly likely when you first start using it, because you have specific wants and needs, and there are certain questions that you want the answer to go a certain way. So you're more likely to bias it, right? And not that you would have any conscious awareness of this necessarily, right? But this is why I'm showing you these tricks for avoiding bias. So for most people, you can simply ask, please show me a clear and unbiased answer, and you can get a clear and unbiased answer for doing that. If the answer is suspect, so you've already asked the question and you're kind of thinking, yeah, it's saying this, but I'm not quite so sure, then you can simply ask, is that a true and unbiased answer? And a lot of times you will get no if you have a bias. And then you say, okay. And that might be the time when you need to call in someone else. This is another one of the methods you can use. So if you have a friend or an associate or someone who already uses a truth testing method, you can ask them to check for you. Or if they don't, you can tell them to watch these videos and learn how to do it. It's easy. Anyone can do it. And they might think it's kind of cool, too. And then you have a buddy and you can cross-check each other. So But here's the thing to know. You don't have to say the question out loud to have someone else check for you. My husband and I do this with each other all the time. Hey, honey, will you check something for me? Yeah, he gets out his pendulum, and I phrase the question in my mind, so I never say it out loud. And when the question is phrased, I say, okay, go, or okay, check. Okay, check it. And he checks, and he gets yes or no. Now, there's no way on earth that he has a bias, right? Because your bias comes from your conscious and your subconscious. He doesn't even know what I'm asking. He doesn't even know if it's about him, what it's about. So he can check and get a clear and unbiased answer. If we get the same answer, then I know that my answer was unbiased. If we get a different answer, then there's something to look at. And that's what I mentioned earlier about inconsistent answers. So you could always get a third opinion, and I've certainly done that before. Another thing that you can do is you can distract yourself while you're waiting for the answer. So, for example, let's say that you ask a question that you know you have a bias about. You could distract yourself by thinking about something totally different. Now, don't think about a yes or no question, because then who knows what answer you're getting with your truth testing method, right? Are you getting an answer to what you originally asked, or what you're thinking about now? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to know, all things considered, is it optimal for me to go to the movies tonight? While you're waiting for that answer to come, you could think about something totally different, like, what did I have for breakfast yesterday morning, right? It's just, who cares? But it's a distraction. It changes the subject in your mind. Or, what am I going to cook for dinner tonight or tomorrow night? Or, what did Aunt so-and-so send me for Christmas again? Doesn't matter what the question is, right? But it's a great way to distract your mind. And just stay distracted for a few moments, and then by the time you bring your attention back, oh yeah, let me see what I got, you can see what answer you got, and it's unbiased, okay? Or you can check to see if it's unbiased. Another thing that you can do is to think about, if I get the answer I don't want, what could I do? So that's something that I'll do. Like, let's say I'm asking a question and I really want a yes. I'll ask the question, and while I'm waiting for the pendulum to move, I'll think, so what will I do if I get no? Well, if I get a no, I could always, and I finish that thought. Because it detaches me from that strong attachment to really needing a yes. It's like, well, it sort of tells me, but if I got a no, it'd be okay, because I could always blah, 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 right? So that's another good way to have it be no big deal, to sort of diffuse your attachment. And then you can look and see what the answer is. And sometimes you'll be like, oh, yay, it was what I wanted. Or, oh, it's a no, but that's okay, because now I already have a solution worked out, right? So those are the ways that you can handle your bias. Now, some people will tell me too, but I can tell my hands moving. Or some people have told me too in these videos, you know, in one of them, I really see your hand move. That does not indicate a bias in any way, shape, or form, okay? Because these pendulums are not magic. There's nothing magic about this, okay? There's nothing, I'm not going to say there's nothing special, because this one is special, because my friend made it for me, and I love it. But there's nothing magical, there's nothing mystical about it. This is simply a tool for me to get answers that are already within me. I already know the answers. This is simply a tool. Look, it's affirming. It's moving yes right now. This is already a way for me to affirm what I already know to be true. So hand movement does not in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you, I have a friend who is a genius at this stuff. And she'll sit there and say, oh, look, yeah, it's yes. I mean, you can totally see her hand moving, but she knows when she has a bias and when she doesn't. And my 5-year-old can pick it up and go, Mom, I'm getting no, you know. And she really is. We can all check, and she's totally right. She knows it. The pendulum is just the manifestation of that. So if your hand is moving, it's not that big of a deal. That doesn't necessarily indicate a bias. So I would stick with the things that I taught you to check and see if there's bias. Try these out. Let me know how they work. And if you have questions, please post them here. Please feel free to visit my website, AskAmyAnything.com. See you soon.